talking about the basics of the state legislature. This year, our session starts a little later. It starts January 14th. Usually it starts a week before this, but for some reason it's a little bit late this year and goes to May 13th. Let's see. What does the state legislature do? The biggest thing that the legislature needs to do is determine our state budget. They're sort of taking into account all of the taxes that are collected, and then figuring out, what are the priorities of the state? How are we going to fund these? What are the priorities we already have to fund statutorily? What's left over for new legislation? And that's a big part of what our legislators do. They also pass laws, of course, that govern our state. They might be new policies, they might be revised policies, and then we always see a lot of resolutions, which are non-binding and sort of make a statement politically about what, maybe that sort of meets the moment. We always have, for example, an equal pay resolution for women, equal pay for women resolution. I think that's happened every year for many, many, many years. But often they'll do something that's, about, mental health or, taking care of children sort of things. We do have a citizen legislature. That means that our folks are not full-time lawmakers. They work just from January to May, and then they have other jobs, mostly maybe they're lawyers or business owners, consultants, lots of different types of professions, but they are a citizen legislature, which makes them far more accessible than members of Congress or the Senate. At the federal level, our citizens are much more accessible. They engage much more with people, and really it's meant to be more accessible for anyone to run for office. The makeup of the legislature, of course, we have 100 total members. There's 65 members in the House, and they run for office every 2 years, and they can serve for a total of 8. There are 35 senators. They serve 4-year terms and also can serve a total of 8. And then you can switch and run in the other chamber if you'd like. Right now, the Democrats have control of both chambers as well as the governor's seat. And then just talking quickly about kind of how a bill becomes a law. If you follow the federal level at all, it is very complicated. There are a ton of procedural rules and lots of ways that things can be avoided, and it just gets really, really complicated. But at the state legislature, it's pretty simple. It's very straightforward. So here's our little chart. And again, you may all be well aware of how things work down there, but a bill is introduced in either the House or the Senate, and it gets immediately assigned to a relevant committee. The committees that we work with are the most are in the Senate, Transportation and Energy, and on the House side, Energy and Environment. Those are the ones that our bills typically get assigned to. They will go to a committee hearing where the bill sponsors will present their case. Folks will come and testify in favor or in opposition. That's one of the things that Mountain Mamas does, is we will go ourselves to testify, or our members will come and testify. Meg has testified at a number of committee hearings, which is amazing and fantastic and really does have an impact. One thing about the state capitol is our legislators don't hear from as many people as, say, a member of Congress might. And so when a constituent turns out, or when just regular folks who aren't, paid by a company or an organization, when just regular folks come out, it really does have an outsized impact. And those committee hearings are really great opportunities to participate. That the bill can get amended in the committee, and then, it could die in committee, but assuming it makes it through, if there's a fee, like if there's a fiscal note attached, meaning the bill will require funding from the state to implement, then it will go to appropriations. So there's definitely two steps if a bill has a fiscal note. This year, which we'll talk about in a little bit, we have a pretty hefty deficit. So any bills that cost money are likely not going anywhere. But the appropriations is always a big hurdle. Once it gets through approps, if it needs to, it goes to the full floor, and it goes through two votes on the floor. The first vote is called second reading, where it gets read across, or not read across the desk, but it gets read again, and it can be amended on the floor, and then it has a full vote, and then later it will come up again for third reading. And once it gets through third reading, it gets sent to the opposite chamber, and it goes through the exact same process again. If the bill gets amended in the second chamber, it has to go back to the original chamber for what's called concurrence. So they basically can vote yes on the bill as it is. They can amend it again, but if they do, it has to go back again to that second chamber. That doesn't happen very often. Usually these bills are getting kind of worked out in the lobby or in meetings with legislators between lobbyists and organizations and people, so that it doesn't have to keep going back and forth. But once both houses, both chambers have voted on the exact same bill, it goes to the governor's desk for his signature or veto. And typically he has, about 10 days to sign or veto, or just let the bill go into law. I'll pause there and see if there are any questions. And feel free to just come off mute and ask. Oh, you're on mute, Meg.
Sorry, I hit the button like double. Senator Cutter today was saying that they cannot walk out of their office without tripping over Excel lobbyists, and that it's really heavily, lobbyists have a huge presence there. And she said that to point out that it really makes a huge difference when citizens show up to speak too. So, I mean, you know that, but.
Was she saying, just out of curiosity, was she saying that there are more Excel lobbyists there than normal, or she just was using them as an example of?
As an example, we were talking about the new rate structure, the time of use rate change or whatever that Excel just put through. And she was saying how hard it is to get stuff passed. Big corporations like that have a ton of paid lobbyists, versus citizens who may not have time to show up and give their opinions and stuff like that. So if her point was that if you can't be there in person to testify, that definitely calling your legislator is very welcome and very important.
Thank you for sharing that, Meg. That's really helpful.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. That's a great overview of the process. I forgot to mention that I'm on the Colorado Renewable Energy Society Policy Committee, and we usually meet on Wednesday at noon, and same time as this. But this is an off week for us, so that's why I was sitting in. One of the you mentioned time of use and so on. The new time of use rates that went into effect the 1st of November doesn't have a higher rate during the summer months during the day, since they eliminated that. And in past years, I'm sorry, I might have somebody at the front door. Oh well, it's probably just somebody leaving a brochure. Yeah, they've gone. So, and it's not an Amazon delivery, so obviously we get a lot of those. Okay, but going back to my point, is that by eliminating any higher time of use rates during the day, that's for residential solar system, which I obviously have. That's cut back the the benefit by about 25 to 40%. In other words, it's by eliminating those higher rates during the day for solar. It's costing me personally about, like I said, about $500 a year, at least $300 to $400 a year, maybe $500. So that's one of the issues that CREFS and COSA his group is working on, to see if there's some way of compensating residential solar for that loss of revenue. So I'm just going to bring that up, and I'm working with a couple of people that are doing a bunch of calculations on that.
Wow, thank you for.
Yeah, I hope that made sense. I was kind of sorry, I got interrupted there in my train of thought, but basically, yeah, it's about a 25 to 40% reduction in revenue for solar residential homeowners.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I'd love to talk to you offline about that. That's frustrating. Okay, well, we'll keep moving on here. Let's see. So, let's see, where is it? Here we go. All right, so as I mentioned, and as I'm sure you have been reading in the paper, Colorado is facing about an $800 million deficit due to a few factors. So one, of course, is the taxpayer bill of rights, and this has been an issue ongoing, depending on the year since its implementation. And Tabor, just sort of at its core, is basically a cap on how much money from the taxes that are collected the state is able to spend. And it uses a formula of population times inflation that creates the cap. And then the state is allowed to spend up to that cap, and anything beyond any revenue that goes over that cap must be given back to the taxpayers, even if there is a need from the state. So we are at a cap that is unfavorable to the state at this point, which was also the case last year when we had, I can't remember the number, it was like $1 billion or something last year as well. And I think I'll get to that next point in a second. The other piece here is that Medicaid costs continue to increase. This is across the country. It's not Colorado specific, but it's impacting us, particularly after H.R. 1 passed, which put more of the burden onto states to cover Medicaid. And the tax cuts from H.R. 1 directly impacted our budget because our tax cuts are reflected by the federal taxes. We're connected. We basically follow federal taxes in Colorado. We're one of only 2 states that does that. And so when they cut taxes federally, our taxes got cut here. So it's been kind of a triple whammy. And 2027 is also forecasted to have about $700 to $800 million deficit, at least as of now. And there isn't a projection yet for 2028, but this issue of having to cut our funding, or our spending rather, is at least going to happen for the next 2 years. So that's bad news, obviously, on a lot of fronts, as Tabor, just generally puts us in this bind where we can't react to the moment and we can't plan ahead for things to sort of grow or shrink, mostly grow, obviously, so responding to Medicaid costs is all we can do is cut those benefits. At least that's one solution that's being presented. Again, if you have, excuse me, that just caught me off guard. If you have questions, just come off mute and interrupt me at any point. So I wanted to bring us to the State Ledge website and make sure that you know how to find your state rep and state senator. So this is this is kind of a new format on their website, but you can, I'll just type in my zip code because my zip code is only in one, it doesn't kind of break across multiple districts. So you type in your full address here, and your state senator and your state rep will pop up. So my state senator is Lindsay Doherty. It has her contact information here, and you can link to her webpage on the Ledge site. Same with my representative. You can get her information. It used to be when you clicked on their web page, there would be more information than is currently here, and they might still be working on this. I'm not sure, but it will link to, at least you can see kind of, well, you can see the party, you can see the bills, like what sessions she has served in, and you can click on these and look to see what bills she sponsored or supported. It has her phone number and her district. But I also wanted to show you, if you look up your legislator directly, and we'll just look at Judy Amabile. If you look, excuse me, on their pages, you can see a lot more information about them, which is very helpful. You can look to see what committees they are assigned to. You can see all their basic contact information on here, and then you can scroll down and see kind of what bills they sponsored. So this is really helpful. It kind of all shows, this is actually new, I'm pretty sure, where they have the bill sponsorship on the page itself. But you can go, you know, she's the chair of appropriations, she's on the Joint Budget Committee, so any bill or issue around cuts or spending, you know, this is a senator that we would want to talk to. So that's all great information when you're looking up your legislator to kind of understand, you know, they're assigned committees based often on their, oh, Bonnie, did you have a question?
No, my phone just rang.
Oh, okay. Just want to check it. So they're assigned to committee based on what their interests are or what their specialties are. So if somebody is very interested in education, they might sit on the education committee. If they're interested in energy and environment, they might get assigned to that. If they're really interested in, you know, business or labor, that's their committee. So you can kind of see what their expertise are, and that's just helpful information. Looking at the committees themselves, there's a whole page that shows you the list of committees in the House and then a list of committees in the Senate. So let's take a look at energy and environment in the House, since that's one of the committees that we work, you know, pretty closely with, or at least our bills are going to go to their committees. So here are all the people that sit on this committee. You can see that Rep. Valdez is the chair, Rep. Velasco is the vice chair. These are all the folks that sit on it, and will be, you know, kind of the first folks that we want to talk to about our bill to make sure that it clears this first hurdle and gets out of committee and goes to the floor. There's lots of other information about those committees. Let's go back and look on the Senate side, transportation and energy. And of course, I'm sure many of you are aware that that Senator Winter tragically passed away a few weeks ago. And so I know there will be some reshuffling here. I'm not sure if Senator Cutter will take over this committee as chair, since she was serving as vice chair, but there will be an additional member from the Democrats that gets assigned to this committee in the coming weeks as things get underway to replace Senator Winter. But these are the folks that we'll be talking with in this committee. I'll say that this is a challenging committee. Senator Mullica is a pretty tough vote on a lot of things that we care about. Senator Heinrichsen, also a tough vote because he has a lot of labor folks in his district that are often fighting against renewables as they are working to protect the jobs that they currently represent. And then Senator Sullivan, I'm not really sure why he's on that committee, but I think this just isn't really his forte, but nevertheless, that's who we have. So anyway, I encourage you to take a look, figure out who your legislator is, and get some information about them. You can also Google them and look at their campaign page to see kind of what issues they ran on and what might be important to them as you're trying to develop a relationship with them. Any questions on that or things you want to see on the site before I move on? Okay. So let's talk about kind of what our plan is this year. In terms of how Mountain Mamas engages, we have a relatively new legislative team. This is our second year with the Ledge team. And this is a group of folks that will be meeting on a regular basis. We just had our December meeting last night, but we'll start again in January, and we'll meet every other week. And we're going to be talking about our priority bills and how we can support that more deeply. This team will be helping put together our lobby day. They'll be helping engage our members. They'll be helping put together events. So if you're interested in joining that or would like to learn more information, please reach out and let me know. We're just getting started, so it's certainly not too late to join. But we have about 10 folks on there now, and I'm excited about what we're gonna do together this year. We work to, of course, determine our priority bills. We have 3 to 4 every year. I'll run through those next after we get through this piece. As I mentioned earlier, committee hearing testimony is a great way to plug in. Sometimes it can be a little challenging for folks who work or have kids that you have to pick up from school, just because it can take a long time and it changes last minute often, like bills will get rescheduled. But once it's really like 3 minutes of speaking, and then you're done and you can hop off. And we try to do our best to kind of keep you posted on when a bill comes up and when you can join, because you can join virtually, which is an amazing thing and makes it far more accessible to many of us, because these hearings can take many hours if there's lots of controversial bills on the agenda. And one of our claims to fame is that we often are helping work on the most controversial bills in a session around energy and environment. So our bills are often long hearings. But you can always watch a hearing online and see kind of what it looks like before you decide whether you're up for testifying. But it's always interesting and as Meg pointed out, an important component to having our voices heard down there. We always do a lobby day. Right now we're talking about mid-April as being our big lobby day. And then we're going to do some mini lobby days this year. We haven't done this before, but I would like to increase our presence down there like throughout sessions. So we're talking about doing something in February, something in March, and then a big lobby day in April. And lobby days will be like maybe an hour or 2 in the morning. It is during the week. So that can be a challenge, I know, for some folks, but if you have capacity and interest, it's really fun to go down there. And then lobby day itself is longer. That generally starts at 8 a.m. We do a little training on our bills, and here's how to lobby. Basically, we're pulling people out off the floor. We'll be standing in the lobby, pulling people off the floor, having like a 3-minute conversation with them in a group of our members about the bills that we care about, and then they go back in and we call out the next person. So it's really fun. It's interesting to see how things work down there, and they do love it when we are down there or when any sort of constituency group comes down. We have a lot of babies that come too, and that is always fun. People will come out just to see the babies. So keep an eye out for those dates if you're interested in coming to a lobby day. Obviously, we're always going to be writing emails. Calls to legislators are far more impactful than emails because they get, hundreds and like probably tens of thousands of them every session. But calls are less frequent, and so they make more of an impact. We'll be asking members to submit letters to the editor about different issue areas. And this is it's still an effective tool, even in the days of people getting their news from social media, because if you mention a legislator by name in a letter to the editor, they will see it because they're always looking for their name in the news. And that's really the target audience here. So letters to the editor are important. They're very easy. We can help draft them for you so you can just edit it in your voice. And then we'll be doing rallies and press conferences with our coalition partner organizations. And so we'll be, kind of plugging into those as they come up. And of course, bringing friends and kids is always encouraged, and kids are welcome at all of our events and all of our activities. So if you have little ones at home or bigger kids, they're always welcome. And we are going to be inviting students to come to our big lobby day and probably one of our mini lobby days to join us to do sort of a student and parent lobby day this year. And then, of course, we have our lunch bunch meetings where we'll do issue briefings. We're going to do a lobby training probably in maybe February. I haven't quite decided exactly when we're going to do that, so that if you've never lobbied, you have a better understanding beyond what we're talking about today of how to have a conversation with a legislator, what are some good tactics to use, and kind of the importance around grassroots lobbying. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions before I move into our bills that we're working on this year. All right, straightforward. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Sorry, I just thought of something. Senator Cutter today said that those emails that we all get invited to send to our legislators where we plug our name in and just, she said, as you pointed out, Sarah, that they get so many of those, and it's clearly minimal effort, that it really does not have a lot of impact. So I just wanted to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's true. It is something that we all do, even though we all know it doesn't have as much of an impact, but it feels like we are. And so, yeah, I think that's probably why we still do it. But we have been trying to shift more to getting our members to make calls, but it's just harder. Like, people just are less inclined to make a phone call. And if you call after hours, you're just leaving a message. You don't even have to talk to a person live. And that is sometimes half of the battle is just not wanting to talk to somebody because you feel like you have to be an expert. But they're not looking for your expertise. They're just looking for your opinion. And so it can be as simple as, I'm Sarah, I'm a constituent, here's my address, and I want you to vote yes on such and such bill. So good point, Meg. All right. So I don't have slides up on our bills, but I'm going to just kind of talk through them briefly, and and please feel free to ask questions. We have 3 priority bills that we're working on this year. One is clean electricity plan bill, which is encouraging, well, basically, so Xcel and the utilities have a mandate to get to 80% renewable by 2030, and there are no goals beyond that for the electricity side. So we need to set kind of the next benchmark for our utilities to hit because they plan well in advance. They have to plan well in advance of what what the infrastructure needs are, and how they're going to be spending their resources and investment dollars, and that all has to go through the Public Utilities Commission. But the legislature sets the goals and can set the goals. And so our goal is to set the next benchmark at 100% renewable clean energy by 2040 for the electrical side. This is one of the governor's priority bills, so we're hoping that something will get passed. Just understanding that it probably won't look the same as we're talking about it today by the time it gets either introduced or eventually passed. Bills get amended all the time. As Meg pointed out, Xcel has a huge swath of lobbyists that are weighing in on this, and they're going to be the loudest voice in the room. But it's really important for us to be continuing to set those benchmarks so we can get to 100% emission reduction by 2050 across the board. And our electrical grid is a huge component of that. So it's complicated, but the simplest way to think about it is just sort of setting those next goals for our utilities. The second bill we're working on is on-bill financing. So this would be borrowing from a fund that's housed within the Treasury Department so that people can basically get a loan from the state in order to make their homes more energy efficient. So if they want to buy a heat pump, they want to buy solar panels, they want to insulate their house, something that's going to help them reduce their energy bill, they can borrow from the state and pay it off on their utility bill. This bill ran last year. It died, unfortunately, in the Senate, but we're kind of reconfiguring things and hoping that we have a more successful bill this year, but it will be huge for affordability, especially with the federal tax incentives going away for homeowners. And then the last priority bill at this point is, excuse me, I'm about to cough, is a data center protection bill, basically putting safeguards around our data centers. The bill is not trying to prevent data centers from coming online in Colorado. That's not the intent, nor is that likely to be successful. But we need to be protecting our water here in Colorado. Data centers use a huge amount of water. We need to be protecting our climate goals, making sure that putting these large loads onto our grid doesn't impact our goals that we just talked about, because that's what they do. And we want to make sure we're protecting ratepayers, because in states that do not have regulations, people's rates that live near data centers are going up by 200 to 300%, sometimes more. And basically, residents and businesses are paying for, are just like subsidizing these data centers' energy. And so that'll be a huge priority for us to make sure that we put some protections around those components for data centers to get built. So those are the big ones. Any questions? I know I kind of ran through those quickly. We'll go into them in more depth again next year, but any questions are welcome.
Yeah, that's a great list of bills. I mentioned the Colorado Renewable Energy Society Policy Committee, and they're working on similar bills. I guess what I would like to do is invite you, Sarah, to make a presentation to the CRESS, one of the CRESS luncheons, and just figure out ways to collaborate between the two groups. I could talk to you more about that offline. Yeah. It could be a great team effort, and so they're pretty much focusing on the same series of bills and how to collaborate. So
that would be great. I would love that. Let's definitely connect. Thank you. All right, I see we are 1 minute over. I'm going to just fly through these next events. So another plug for Ledge Team, if you're interested in that. Our next meeting is January 13th at 7 p.m. And then we're going to, this is wait, is that a Wednesday or a Tuesday? I thought it was a Tuesday. I'm going to trust that what I put up there is accurate. And then we're going to meet every other week. If you're interested, we'll get you on the invite and you'll have that accurately. I'm just going to check if it's bugging me. It's a Tuesday. It is a Tuesday, January 13th. And then our next meeting will be January 21st. Usually we meet the second Wednesday, but we're going to push it to the third because Mountain Mamas will be on a staff retreat. And then we also have an opportunity to testify on the gas infrastructure plan at the Public Utilities Commission on January 20th from 5 to 6:30. Meg testified last month on this issue, but basically this is Xcel's plan, their next like 5-year plan for how gas infrastructure will be built. And they're putting, they're wanting to put an additional $3 billion into gas infrastructure at a time when they are supposed to be reducing their emissions. So we are turning out and showing up to say no new gas. Xcel needs to do a lot of work to move people off of gas and electrify this side of, basically how we heat our homes. So if you're interested in that, I have lots of talking points and information. I'll be there. It's remote, so you can do it from home. And we'll be talking about that, a little bit more as we in the coming weeks. But let me know if you're interested in testifying. It would be great to have you. All right. Any questions on that? Comment. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here.
I would just kind of repeat the comment. As Crest has been heavily involved in working on that gas infrastructure plan too. So be a lot of good ways to collaborate. Thank you.
Yeah, great. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear you guys are doing a lot of the same things. These are important pieces to get us to 100% emission reduction. So, all right. Well, thank you all so much. Sorry we went over a little bit this month. Let me know if you're interested in helping out. You don't have to be part of Ledge Team to do any of these things, by the way. It's just one opportunity. So anyway, thank you again. I hope you all have a great holiday season, and we'll see you next month.
Same to you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.